Okay, so Hafaday, welcome to the Fanachu podcast. I'm one of the guest hosts today. I'm Pim Limtiaco, and I have my guests here, Sanz and Luke Tedtaotao. So today we're going to talk about a very controversial topic about the authenticity of Chamoru dance and some FESTPAC related comments. So just to provide some background for myself. I'm in a cultural dance group, particularly in Pagu, and I'm a musician. And I thought this topic was really interesting because of some of the Twitter drama happening and just all the social media talks about what makes Chamoru dance authentic. So I have here Sanz. Can you go ahead and just give us an introduction?
Afade, I'm Sanz. I've been dancing since 2005, so about 15 years now. I'm also with Pagu, and I was recently selected to be an official delegate for this year's FESTPAC as a dancer.
Yay. Okay, and how about you, Luke?
Today, I'm Luke Tedtaotao. I've been dancing since 2005 as well. I started in famagu'on under Eileen Meno, which transitioned to Irenchen Tautau. And recently, about nearly 2 years ago, I started my own group, Guma Imanyatlu, or the Imanyatlu Cultural Arts Program.
All right. So here we have some very successful fafanaguis. Yay! Yeah. Woo! Okay, so I just want to talk about first, maybe provide some background on what spurred this discussion. It all started with some people on social media critiquing how Chamoru dance resembles Hawaiian dance, or how some of our leaders had plagiarized some of the movements from Hawaiian dance. So it kind of just blew up, and people are both ends of the spectrum, from those from Guam and those from Hawaii, kind of went back and forth and talking about cultural plagiarism, or even cultural appropriation, or some will say it's sharing of cultural knowledge. So there was a lot of, at least reading some of the comments, there was a lot of tension between these two parties, or between us and even those from Hawaii. So going back, I just want to provide some background on what started this whole conversation in the first place. It started with some of people that we really know, who are Twitter famous, and also somehow Facebook famous too, and who also seem to be more present in Western media like Al Jazeera and other things, but and maybe local news like PDN. But anyways, they started the conversation about questioning the authenticity of Chamoru dance, and that upset a lot of communities, especially the local dance communities here, and because particularly their position or their contribution in Chamoru dance in general is known to be little to none. So I found the conversation interesting because it also made me think about it, like, okay, how much do we know, or what is considered true, what is considered made up, and is this just being overly critical of our dance, or is there some sort of light into this conversation? Initially, I got defensive too because, I'm actively in a cultural dance group. So those who are not familiar with the process and what we do and how we contribute, or how much research we take into account of this, and even consulting with different sainas just to make sure that our movements were correct, or they didn't resemble, other islands. It's a lot of work that we really put into, but it is a good question to ask ourselves, like, what is authenticity, or, how much is this considered Chamoru, or, is there a possibility that there was some plagiarism in the process. So I have these two here that I wanted to talk to because I'm more of a musician. I don't dance. I mostly make the beats to the dance, but I think these guys have more credibility than I do, and I don't really know that much about the roots of how Chamorro cultural dance started, or even just Chamorro dance. So I just want to ask them some questions that we came up with so that they can help sort of facilitate and even just like educate us on what we don't know, and maybe even encourage us to make the movement better, or to make improvements in our dance, or even have more people or inspire more people to participate. So Funa and Luke, it's up to you guys if you whatever you want to answer. But here are some of the questions. How do you respond to people who say that our dances aren't real?
Okay. If they say, okay, they say your dances are not real, and then I'll say, okay, define real. What do you mean by real? Like, what is your criteria of realness? You know, like there's so many things you could mean by real. That's how I look at it. Like, so if they say real as in, oh, the Chamorros from 500 years ago didn't dance like this, I'll be like, how do you know? You know, like, I don't know. I just feel like this is just so going back into the authenticity thing is like, there's so many things that we don't even know is real or not. So I don't know. What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Luke, do you have something to say about that?
Kind of the same thing, like, what is real to you? I mean, our dances are very real. You can see it. You can smell it. You can smell it in the dancers' hair or their costume, the flowers that they use in their hair. You can feel it when they sing and when they chant. I mean, how much more real do you need it to be?
Or even the stories that it tells.
Yeah, the stories that they tell. You know, a good example. You know, people suggested online that we create dances depicting traditional practices and legends. In Pagu, they have the legend. They depict the legend of the fish that ate Guam. You know, the women sing of cutting their hair, cutting their hair, weaving the net, and catching the fish, saving Guam. My guma and a lot of other gumas, they depict traditional fishing, farming, hunting. You know, the guma ulitao, the practices there. My guma also depicts the practice of the ma ulitao. You know, we it's not as sexual as probably what it should be. You know, we try to keep it PG on stage, but we depict it, and you know, like Funa said, how do you know that what we do isn't real? Do you have the phone number or the email to our ancestors from 4,000 years ago? If you do, please share it with us. Or you can ask them to WhatsApp us some videos from 4,000 years ago. Please do so. Maybe we can learn from that. But you know, when we create these dances and these chants, we do our research, but we have to go beyond just the research, because a lot of the historical accounts are accounts of foreigners, not of our own people. They're accounts of what the foreigners wanted to write in our history books, what they wanted to make known to us.
Yeah, and we already know Chamorros, you know, they like to casti, so how do we even know they told the foreigners the truth? I mean, I know there's one legend, right, where they told the Spanish people that the ocean came from Punta's met meat. So, like, do we really think that, or we were just, you know, teasing them because why do they deserve to know our knowledge? And then going back to what Luke said about how we should depict traditional practices, it's like we've been doing that, but these people that are saying that don't come to watch our performances. They don't come to our practices and see what we do. They don't see us interacting with the youth and teaching them. Like, all they have to do is come to one practice and see what we're teaching, what we're being taught, and you can see the representation of these practices in our dance.
Yeah, going back on that, it's like some of them said they have watched, but did they truly watch our performances? Did they understand, or did they go and choose what they wanted to see? And when they come to our practices, do they truly learn what we're doing? Because I've had students that come and don't really, you know, they dance. They could be in my group for like 3 months, 4 months, and not truly understand until after that time. Like, it takes time to understand. You're not gonna learn it in just the first 30 minutes you're there. Me, myself, I joined initially just to dance, but it became more than just dance. It became more than just hanging out with my friends. You know, like, I'm not rich. I cannot live off of what I do. I don't even charge fees to my students. A lot of times it's out of pocket that we all pay. And sorry, I'm getting kind of passionate right now.
Hey,
clap. But,
no, that's a false clap. Yeah. But go ahead.
Okay, false clap.
Go ahead. Just
so unless you're truly in our community and you indulge yourself, you can't say that what we do isn't real.
And even like one of the arguments that went around is that, well, isn't dance supposed to speak for itself? Aren't you supposed to automatically understand it from watching it? But every single dance I've ever watched, the only way I could understand it is if I asked the dancers, is if I asked the creators, the instructors. Like, you could watch any dance and, okay, even if you know the language that they're singing, you still don't know what every move represents. And maybe like, the more bigger motions you can tell, like, like making a fish and then like the fisherman catching it. That's so obvious. Sorry.
Clap.
But like the little things, the subtle movements, you won't know unless if you care about knowing, then you'll ask the creators, you'll ask the dancers. Yeah.
Those are some really great perspectives, and honestly, I'm already feeling like the kana. I'm feeling the passion right now. Almost makes me want to
let me tone it down.
Tone it up.
Okay. So we talked about some authenticity behind that. So what about like Chamoru authenticity? Because we've been getting a lot of criticism, at least in the dance community, that like we plagiarized Hawaiian dance. And just to provide some background, yes, we've had some people from Hawaii like point this out. Even over decades in some FESTPACs, some have commented, like they just stole Hawaii's hula or whatever. And I don't know too much about that, but Luke has also participated in FESTPAC back in 2008 in American Samoa, sorry. And I think he can share some perspective on that because he actually interacted with the different delegations. And yeah, so if you want to like kind of, even you, Fu, if you can comment on that, like, Chamorro authenticity. So with these critics going around saying, they stole Polynesian dance or whatever, which I think is also kind of like not even the correct language to use, because Polynesian, you're also including like Fiji, Samoa, Tahiti. So I don't think one Polynesian island can speak for the rest of
this isn't Moana.
No, but even then Disney makes Moana very ambiguous about if it's Polynesian, but it does imply some Polynesian aspects. But anyways, going back.
Make way.
Going back.
Careful,
so
don't sing that, they might think you're stealing it.
So what do you guys have to say about that? About how Chamorro dance in some ways can or does not or resembles Hawaiian dance? I think we'll just keep it broad like that, or specific at least, because I can't really say Polynesian. I'm not really sure. So
I guess like some of the movements, not even the dances, the movements that look similar. It's kind of like you can't say that we just stole them or they were appropriated through hula. A lot of times it's the hip movements, right?
Yeah, it's always the hip movement.
Like bumping of the hips.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that ancient Chamorro's women didn't bump their hips.
And if every other island around us
does it,
sways their hips, bumps their hips.
Why not the Chamorros?
Yeah, why couldn't...
I think Chamorros, as far as to my knowledge, they didn't just sit under the coconut tree all day and just stare at each other. They had to have done something. And even when you walk, sometimes you just bump your hip. I mean, so we can't. Yeah, that's a lot of the hip movements, and maybe some of like there are some movements that do look similar, but a lot of times it's the movements that are we say the word universal, but people like to argue with us when we say universal. But they're movements that are seen throughout the Pacific, even in Micronesia. So how does it that all the other islands, all the other island nations can move like that, but it's so wrong for the Chamoru people to move that way? You know, and when I went to when I went to American Samoa in 2008, I mean, maybe it was because I was young that I didn't understand. I was only like 14, 15 at the time. But as far as I know, none of us in the delegation were approached and we're getting, you know, no one came up to us and criticized us. It was like from the other islands. Hawaii never said anything to me, and I had conversations with them when I was in American Samoa, and you know other times. I mean, I don't know if I should mention this, but I'm in the military, and shut up. I've interacted with people who are from Hawaii, who are Hawaiians, not people who live in Hawaii, but actual Hawaiians, and we've exchanged conversations like this. And when I've shown them videos or I've done a little demonstration for them, there was never any critique from them. Some of them were hula dancers as well. So I mean, like, you know, kind of like what Pim said, you can't have one or two people speak on behalf of the entire Polynesia because of that one, you know, comment of us stealing movements, when there are comments of masters of hula who say that who support our movements, who support our movement as the Chamoru people, say that it's good, we're doing the right thing, we're moving forward, but then these people that are criticizing us are so quick to say the same thing. Who says that one hula master can speak on behalf of the entire Polynesia? Well, that's the same thing as the person criticizing us. Who says they can speak on behalf of the entire Polynesia?
Yeah, and even with what Luke said about, okay, the hip movements are what everyone associates with hula or Tahitian dancing. And then to say that Chamorros couldn't have danced like that, it's like, just go to Chamorro village and see how the Manamku dance. And when they do cha-cha, their hips are totally moving all the time, and they're not cultural dancers, you know. This is what they learn. It's like so natural to them. So I feel like the argument that only this nation could have danced like that, or that the move belongs to this nation. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, you know, there's only so many movements a human body can do. So
how about your experience? Like, what about your experience? Like, what was your experience like? For example, because you taught at GW, what was your experience like teaching, like maybe your students those, you know, like hip movements and stuff? Like, did you see similarities in different cultures or?
Yeah. Well, okay, so for me personally, when I started teaching at GW, I did want to like kind of move away from how my instructor, Vince Regis, teaches. I wanted to make my own way and do my own style of dancing. So I kind of did stay away from like a lot of, you know, what people define as ancient dances. So we didn't really do a lot of hip movements. Like my style of dance that I taught was more contemporary. And my students, like the best students were always like my Chuki students. And I would ask my Chuki students to teach me, you know, their dances so that we could use it in our dance. And they were always like the fastest to learn these movements because, you know, it's in their culture already. And if people are arguing that we need to look to Micronesia for inspiration, like I've already done that. Like, you know, I tell my students, make this dance for me and we're going to do it. And, you know, and they're really badass.
Like, can you give us some examples? Because for those who are not like familiar or who have that trained eye to really differentiate like the difference between Polynesian, Micronesian dances, like what are some of like the current like dances that we do, you know, that make it Micronesian, or like what are some of the motions? Even you, Luke, like what are some of these motions like that kind of like show Micronesian roots, or in some ways like a uniqueness to like Micronesia, or at least, you know, what we know.
I know like the stick dancing, right? I've seen like Yappies dance with the sticks, and you know the tunas, that's what we call it in Chamorro. So I think, I don't know. Okay, I know Frank Rebon, developed the Tunis dance. So I don't know where he got the inspiration from, but I do know that I see it in other Micronesian cultures. So I'm assuming he got it from them, but Luke would know more.
I was actually just reading, before we came here, I was reading one of the books, In Ancient Chamorro Society, I think it's called, by
Cunningham.
Yeah, Cunningham. And there was a part there that did talk about dance, and it talked about how there's no record of Chamorros dancing with sticks, but in recent times, in modern day, we do, because other Micronesian islands have stick dances. And the ulitao, it's not a stick fight, the Bailan ulitao, it represents the building of the Guma ulitao. There's 8 counts, and there's 8 lari stones under the Guma ulitao. So that's what that represents. It's the rising of the Guma ulitao. So like Funa said, that's another thing that's kind of the same with other Micronesian islands, the stick dance.
Yeah, so he says there's no record of stick dance, but there is record of using a tunis.
Yes, exactly.
So why can't we take, a traditional item and then, express it in an art form, right? Yeah.
What about the motions? Because personally, me, I kind of participated in some of the FESTPAC practices, and there were some really interesting ones, like the sea cat, for example. What can you say are the roots behind that?
Well, Luke's
yeah, go ahead.
Right?
So the sea cat, it deals with cockfighting. When they're getting the roosters ready to spar, and so that's what that's supposed to represent. It's like I said earlier, people want us to develop these motions to depict traditions, and that's one of the motions. There's a dance move where the girls kind of go back and forth while the men are plowing the ground, and that's supposed to represent the people planting the seeds. And of course, your chickens come running after you, eating all the seeds before they can even grow. So that the sea cat again, it's one of the original movements to our Chamorro dance.
Yeah, I don't see any other cultures.
As far as we know,
dancing like that, like depicting cockfighting, which is a Chamorro tradition. Because we've been doing that. It was in a record, Levesque, Volume 1. No, I don't know. I think it's Volume 1. But it's Levesque.
Okay, so that's really good to know, because a lot of these things I don't even know myself. So it's really good to hear, what you guys know. We'll touch more on the authenticity side and even the roots when we invite more guests who have super deep knowledge on it. But I also want to talk more about what it's done for the community. What is the value of Chamorro dance to the community? Because me personally, I've seen it touch lives, save lives even, and even for myself, because at the time I wasn't even really in touch with my Chamorro roots at the time. And it just became a family. At that point, it wasn't just going to practice. It was even more exciting to even just spend time after and just to get to know each other and really be part of the process. What is writing our own songs or telling our story in so many different ways. What the value, at least, of what the Chamorro dance community has done to me was really get to know myself better, what it really means to be Chamorro. It wasn't just the songs or the lyrics, because over time you learn the language even just through that, or and it's very therapeutic in so many different ways, a big stress reliever, and more importantly, we're sharing our story to either at a local level or even to the rest of the world. So because you guys are so much more involved with the kids, what is some value that you see being part of this?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I feel like we need to go way back to the beginning. So okay, another argument that I heard is that why is dance the prevalent cultural form that everyone wants to use. Like, okay, why don't you go carve or learn how to fish or learn how to weave? But, you know, you don't only have to dance. There are other more authentic forms of Chamorro culture that you can do, but why dance? And I've thought about this, and I think the clear answer is because of how accessible dance is. You know, like there's an established curriculum, DOE approved, for teachers to teach Chamorro dance, and we have it in almost all the public schools on Guam. But what we don't have in the public schools is weaving classes and fishing classes and cooking Chamorro food classes. So that's the reason why dance is so prevalent. And, you know, and that's since the beginning. And then, okay, insert the students in public school who, you know, sometimes they don't come from the best supportive family. And, you know, at their age, from like middle school to high school, you know, all their hormones are crazy. They want to feel like they belong somewhere. And when they start to dance, they feel like they belong. And then another issue with the whole cultural thing and, you know, identity, like they need something to fill Chamorro. It's like, we already know the state of Chamorro culture, right? Yeah, it's in decline. And if these families aren't transmitting that culture, the kids are going to seek it elsewhere. And where is it readily available is in the school system, you know, like their families don't teach them how to say the rosary in Chamorro or play Chamorro music around the house, but where they can always find it is in their Chamorro teacher, in their dance teacher. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for who they are, and a lot of times they find it in dance, and then they go home, and you know, sometimes the parents can't afford to support like this newfound passion they have. And that's where us teachers come in, where, you know, we have to buy them pizza every week because they're in the classroom. They want to learn how to dance, but they don't want to go have lunch, the free lunch. The free lunch in the cafeteria, you know. And then at the same time, the parents can't take them to practices and performances, so we have to drop them home too. You know, you only get paid $1,000 a week, and then field trips, you have to pay for the bus, because if they can't even afford to buy food, what makes you think they can give you money to pay for the bus to get them to perform at Chief Brody Elementary? Because those kids don't have a dance program and they want to see Chamorro dance. And
no, you're doing good. Hey, it's all about passion here. Biba.
You know, this is what dance does for the community. And then when Pim said save lives, like really, we've had dancers who were constantly suspended. You know, they just hang out with their friends, the peer pressure, let's hang out and smoke cigarettes, smoke weed, get drunk. But how are they going to do that if they have to go to practice after school, right? How are they going to, you know, like we've had dancers who would ride their bike from Jigo to Tamuning for a performance, you know, like that's how dedicated they are, because they'd rather do that than to go hang out and try and buy vape juice. So this is what it does for the community. It gives these Chamorro kids who don't know who they are, it gives them a home.
Well said.
It makes them feel like themselves.
How about you, Luke, in your experience?
Halaguahu. Antes de usano ay gimayrenchen Tao gi papa isanan Eileen Meno. Ni hafafai tiningohu puri lengua hita dani kutrata. Lo anai humalumzu gi gimayrenchen Tao. Pagu hutungu mas. Hutungu na ti hutungu todu. Lo hutungu mas pagu. The parahamzu ni tin comprendizu. For me personally, before I joined Gumay Renchen Tao under Master Eileen Meno, I knew jack shit about Chamorro language and Chamorro culture, right? I didn't know anything, and I didn't care to learn anything. Yes, it was spoken at home, and you know, my parents speak it, but being so caught up in Western society, I didn't care. I was like, oh, that's weird. Why would I want to learn that? You know, and when my parents talked to me in Chamoru, I would tell them, can you say it again in English? When I finally joined Sana Eileen's group, I learned more about our language. I learned more about our culture. Like I said, I don't know it all, but I know more than I once did. And now we're here passing it on to the generations who have yet to even come. You know, we're teaching our students who will eventually teach their students. Kind of like Mr. Regis and Miss Meno. They were our teachers. They taught us. Now we have students, and our students will one day have students, and the cycle will just keep going. That's how important it is. And if you can see, I'm wearing all these pieces, right? These were all gifted. The reason why I'm wearing them, not to show off, right? But they were all gifted to me by my students. One a 13-year-old boy, one an 18-year-old young man, and one a 16-year-old young man. You know, and they before they started dancing, they didn't care about. They were like me, exactly like me. You know, they knew nothing. They didn't care, but dance opened up the doors to other aspects in the Chamoru culture. It gave them ways to learn how to carve, because we have carvers in our dance community. It made them, some of them can weave. I don't know how to weave. I suck at weaving.
I know.
I suck at weaving, and another reason why I get gifted these pieces, because I cannot carve my own, and I refuse to buy my own because it has more meaning to be gifted them. You know, like I won't go to, yes, I'll support our carvers, but I won't buy my own pieces. If I was to ever buy a piece, it's for someone else, because it just has more meaning, you know. And like I said, the dance community has opened so many doors. Just earlier, one of our friends, Kiana, she tweeted about how dance has saved lives. And one of my students, not currently active in my group anymore, you know, she and her boyfriend, they graduated from high school. They now have jobs, you know, they're living their lives. And she quoted Kiana's tweet and said, "This reminds me of," they call me Tihu, okay? This reminds me of Tihu's class. Kaio, her boyfriend, naughty boy, fighting almost every day, suspension, like Funa said. And if he kept down that road, you know, he probably would be in jail right now. You know, like she said, he was always with the wrong crowd. And the minute he started taking my class and got interested, he strayed away, like what Pim was saying. They stray away from these things, and and like Funa said, it keeps them busy from going out into the streets and getting into trouble. And they're like, if I tell them we have lunch practice, they're in my class, and it keeps them out of the hallway from fighting with another student, you know. And after school, I don't have time to go and smoke weed because I need to go practice, and Tihu's going to kill me if I'm coming there high.
And if they want to go on a field trip, they need to be good in all their other classes, because all the teachers have to sign off on their field trip.
You know, so dance it's really important. It taught, Funa, she's a first language speaker. So, you know, dance just gave her more opportunities. It gave me the opportunity to learn my language and actually care. Like I said earlier, I joined dance simply to dance. I never once in my life thought I was going to become a Chamoru teacher. But here I am now, you know. And one of my students recently expressed his interest in becoming a Chamoru teacher one day. And his original plan was to join active duty military and fly away and go do whatever, you know, they do. And like I said, I'm in the military for a little bit more, but just a little bit more. And I could have gone active duty, but I knew where home was, and it wasn't because I was going to be homesick because I want my mom's kadu or my grandma's kadu. It's because I knew where my heart lied, and it was here with our people, you know. And this dance community. Someone made a comment online that hula is more than just moving to the rhythm, and so is Chamoru dance. It's more than just that.
Wow, I have to think about this when I go home now, because just hearing how involved you two are in the community, it just makes me think, man, I should be doing more.
I feel like I had the same experience as Luke, because you know, I joined when I was like 12 years old, and so my dad was a Tao dancer, but you know, he never forced me and my brother to dance or do anything like that. And I never thought it was a big deal. I thought it was just whatever. So even at 12 years old, you know, I'm young too, but you know, I didn't care that I could speak Chamorro, and I didn't care about doing anything like Chamorro related. And then joining the dance group, like people would always say, wow, you have a gift. And, you know, I just shrug it off, whatever. But then now as I got older, I was like, wow, this isn't a gift. It's not mine to have. It's mine to give and to share with the future generations, because it's not mine. I'm just borrowing it, you know, from 2000 to 2100, because I'm going to be 100 years old. and then I'm just borrowing it, and then I'll pass it on, because that's what it is. It's not a gift. It's like, you know, what's another thing that's passed on, like an inheritance, right? You just give it when you pass away. So that's the way I see it too, and then that's the way I see it too with dance, is that like these students come in not knowing anything, but they're going to leave knowing who they are and, what they're doing. And then another like side story is that even growing up, I never really connected with my grandma a lot. Like everyone has that same thing about Manamko, like, oh, they're just Manamko, we can't relate, or I don't want to go to the rosary. I don't want to go to church. But after being in dance, it opened me up to Chamoru music, because I really never cared about Chamoru music. And then now, like, I had something I could relate to my grandma with, because now and also my grandma likes to dance, and now I know where I get it. So it's like now we can dance to the same thing, while drinking Miller Lite, and she helps me translate the Chamoru songs, and it's like we can both sing these songs together. And I always try and learn what are her favorite songs, so I can learn it and sing it with her and dance with her. But before joining the dance group, I didn't care about that. But now I do.
So that's
like Funa said about it's not ours. It's ours to pass down. This. She said something earlier about if this family is not going to pass it on. We're out there. We're out there. There's how many groups? Like just on Guam alone, there's so many. Like you can probably find one in almost every village, and that we're passing on that knowledge. We're passing on what we know through dance. Our students are learning the language. They're learning different aspects of the culture through dance. And if and there's people that are criticizing us, but what are you doing to pass on that knowledge? If you're going to, pass it on. We're not stopping you from passing on your knowledge. We're always open to new ideas. We're always open for you to come and teach us. So, like Funa said, we're out here doing what we're doing. And, that's really all that matters, is that we're passing it on. And some people are just keeping their knowledge to themselves. So how does that benefit our people? Yeah,
in their ivory tower, just sitting there, acting like they're Guam Cultural Authority, GCA.
The be all, know all.
But that's how I see it too. Is that I'm still young, so I don't have kids. But so I don't have a family to pass it on to. So I'm gonna pass it on to everyone's family. Every student that comes in, I'm going to pass it on to them, because they deserve it. Even if their family's not giving it to them, then, this is what me and Luke and all the other Chamoru teachers are here for. I feel like that's my mission in life.
Me too.
Yeah.
Did you just find it in this podcast now?
Actually, speaking of that, so one of my mali, like I said, and I hate saying it, I'm in the military.
Go ahead.
Especially here, right?
In front of Dr.
Around
Bavakwa.
everyone here.
In front of Bavakwa.
Like I said earlier, my contract ends soon, and maybe about 2 years ago, my mali, who's also in the military with me, she came by to drop off something to me at one of my rehearsals, and she stood and she watched as I interacted with my students, and she made a comment that stuck with me. And she said, "You need to choose, and this is what you should choose." She said, "I know you love the low gas prices and the cheap commissary, but," she goes, "Pari, I'll gas your car for you."
Send me your grocery list every week.
But she can't keep that promise because she's moving off island. But she made that comment, and it really stuck with me. It made me realize that I do need to choose. And in recent months, coming to the end of my contract, I realized, yes, I do love the low gas prices. Yes, spending like $50 at Payless is
milk
for 2
and
milk
1 eggs.
And 1 egg. I could get like a cart full of stuff at the commissary, but I'm a soldier in the U.S. Army, but I'm a soldier of the Chamoru people first and foremost.
Oh, snaps! We need a soldier. And okay, sorry, we're still stuck on this.
It's okay.
This is such a good question.
No, it's keep going if you feel like.
So then the other thing is that people think dance is just that, and even Luke was saying it's more than just teaching dance. Like for me, I never would have learned how to weave if I never joined a dance group, because this is what they teach us. You know, back when Gef Pagu was still like a functioning village, you know, Mr. Ray just made us go there like every year, and we had to do all the different stations with all the different manamku, teaching us how to make rope, how to make sea salt, how to make coconut oil. And this is just because we're in a dance group, you know, like it's the gateway to all the other cultures. And with my group, with Inana Gef Pagu specifically, like we always try and do more than just dance. Like a few years ago, we hosted a youth conference, and we did this because we knew that, you know, this is the next generation. So we need to give a platform for these teenagers to voice their opinions on, like, you know, the world they live in, the island they live in. And and we're just a dance group hosting a island-wide youth conference. So you can't say that dance is just, you know, you're just doing it as PE or just because you're bored.
Or the
like,
media curriculum.
Yeah, like there's so much more to it that you wouldn't know if you don't come and see and learn and join.
And live it with us.
Yeah.
Very well said. I don't know what else to say here. I'm actually like blown away, guys. But I think what's one thing that we can also look at, I mean, there's just so much to talk about, and even like not just our personal experience, but even just examining things on like the academic side or even deeper into that. There's just so much to talk about dance or authenticity. And yeah, there's just a lot. But I think a good question to ask ourselves, and I'm also stealing this from Miguel, is like, does that mean that we should stop doing this just because someone from the outside said so? Or
Hell
like
no.
Okay, see, this is like a whole other thing again.
No.
Because okay, you have a Chamorro person who writes a poem. Bam, that's Chamorro literature, right? You have a Chamorro person that writes a song. Bam, Chamorro music. So if we have, look at us, a bunch of Chamorros getting together, and, you know, the dances we make is just the medium, our art form that we choose to express our identity. So if these people can write poems and write music, and they're so accepted by the community that, okay, JD Crutch, this is what Chamorro music is, and we can't do a dance to JD Crutch's song and it's not Chamorro dance. So what's the difference there? Like, I don't get it.
yeah.
And people make Chamorro designs on Chamorro clothes, and people say that's Chamorro fashion. So if us now in the 21st century are Chamorros making dances to express our love for the culture, and you're going to say this is not Chamorro dance, then what is it?
It's stolen
Drops
dance.
the mic.
But yeah, so kind of like what Funa said, you know, there was actually another issue that was brought up in regards to our dance. You know, probably one of the big issues too is the Bendy Sean, the stolen tune from Majesty, you know, and someone replied to a comment, or someone replied saying that we stole a tune from Majesty, and then someone else responded with, well, what about all these other Chamorro songs from the 80s and the 90s, the 70s that use Western, you know, country music tunes? And then the other person responded back with, but the Catholic Church they came and they destroyed our people, this and that, all of that. But it's okay to use the Western tunes, even though these people
Western
that are
people do the same thing.
Exactly. Even though you know these they called the Spanish the oppressors, but isn't that what some people are calling, you know, the people that created these Western tunes? You know,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, it's okay. So it's not okay for us to use that tune from Majesty, but it's okay for us to use the tune from Bentuno Zuki Presu, right? So a lot of people that comment on the Bendy Sean, they don't even know the Bendy Sean. You know, they hear it, and there are people that danced with Fuuna's father in Tao in the 1980s that wrote that song, and they didn't know that song goes beyond just the two choruses you hear. There are chants in between, and it's about the building of the Lati stone, and you know, and if you know, I mean, there was nothing wrong with it before, but all of a sudden people have issues with it now. And I understand people's concern with the using of tunes, yada yada yada, but people sample from music all the time. Pia. She used
J-Book.
J-Book, but nothing was wrong with that. Everyone was like, "Oh, damn, that's badass."
Nothing was wrong because she asked J-Book.
So we cannot use what are we gonna ask for Majesty?
It's like
Jesus?
a 1970 song anyway, so I don't know if the writer's even alive still. But go ahead.
With the Bendy Sean, that's like another thing that I wanted to build on is, okay, what constitutes something as tradition or traditional, like hand in hand with authenticity. Mm-hmm. So what makes something a tradition? Is tradition only things that we did 200 years ago that we're still doing now? Because traditions are what the people have decided is the social norm. So, they weren't doing Bendy Sean, and I think it started in late 90s, right?
Yeah.
Starting to do the Bendy Sean was like in the late 90s, right? With the resurgence and everything. And then now it's like so ceremonial. Every single legislative resolution, opening of a business, opening of a ceremony, every Monday assembly at GW High School, we need to do the Bendy Sean. So isn't that a tradition now that it's expected that people know if they have a new business, they need to, Bendy Sean the place first. So if people are accepting this as the norm that we need to have a Bendy Sean everywhere, then isn't that a tradition now that was just established within 30 years? Mm-hmm. So right. It's like the same thing. Like, okay, the people decide what the traditions are. And then if you don't think this is traditional, then what is your criteria? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it just time? Does it need to be 100 years old? So in 2100, it can be a tradition because it took 100 years for it, to do the Bendy Sean. That's the way I see it. Like,
yeah, and then going back to traditional dances too, it's especially us in the dance community, we like to watch YouTube videos and then read all the comments that we shouldn't be reading because it just gets us really fired up. And people's comments that I've seen are, that's not traditional. Our traditional dance is the bailan español. How is you in the name itself, the bailan español?
Like Teresa's Español.
How is that traditional?
They think the Teresa's more traditional.
And then even
because the Teresa's has been around longer. That's how they're looking at it.
And then even with our dances, we still. People say, "Oh, we should stick to the bailan español," and we still do. Yeah. We still do the bailan batsu, the bailan palitos, the bailan haiga, the sotes, the cha-cha, but we just incorporated a whole new ancient style of dance, but people's issue is, the traditional way is bailan español. You need to do the cha-cha,
Okay, and then when we did do the cha-cha, you guys still were getting mad, saying, why are you going to do the colonizers dance? Like, you just said, this is our traditional dance, and then when we do it, you said, actually, that's the colonizer zone. Okay, so then where does that leave us? We should just not have a performing arts delegation at FESTPAC anymore, ever. And then they'll get mad, how come you don't have performing arts delegation? So how are we going to win? We can't
There's
win.
no winning, but, there's no winning, but we're still out here doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers in our dance community. Mm-hmm. There's thousands and thousands and there's teachers who had teachers who had teachers who had teachers and students who now have students who now have students who are going to have students. Mm-hmm. So, say all you want, but we're doing it.
Yeah, and definitely like wrapping this up because there's so much I want to discuss, but our listeners also, I don't want them to fall asleep. No, I'm just kidding. They're not gonna fall asleep. It's I think what a lot of people don't really talk about too is just how we even have that opportunity to recreate ourselves or come up with our own dances or come up with our own music. From more than for 400 years or more than 400 years of being colonized, we kind of lost some of that. So in some ways, even from now or even, back in the 80s or before that, I feel like this gives us an opportunity to create that identity for ourselves or recreate those things or, be more open-minded about that stuff. And just the beauty about how all of us, and even from the different islands, have that similarity, like the hip motions, or even in our languages. You could see how similar, even just listening to how how we all have a a common colonizer, you know, like all those things, like we share so many similar struggles. And I think that's like maybe something that we can think about is like, you know, there's something bigger than this. Like it gives us an opportunity for us to come together and just embrace our identities, and instead of just, you know, criticizing each other or pointing out our flaws, I think we have to see the bigger picture, that there is like, you know, that we all are coming from the same like identity, like as an islander at least, you know. Do you guys have anything else to say? There's so much things I want to talk about, but you know, yeah, we're running out of a little bit of time here. Like, but I think it's great to hear from, you know, dancers from the community, like seeing how much work is really put into reaching out to the youth, or coming up with the dances, or just even creating a family for people who don't even have families at all, or like learning what it is to be like, or what it means to be Chamoru, you know. Ultimately, I think that's what it really is all about, you know. And even just like, you know, participating from the past FESTPAC practices, I remember like what Sinai Eileen said. She said, you know, like this is not Chamorro. This is just not like a Chamorro cultural dance. This is a presentation of our people. You know, it's a presentation of our story. So I think in many ways, like that's really what it is. And, you know, for those who still think differently, you know, we'd like to get your perspective on it, about the whole plagiarism, you know, what, you know, who, where, where are you getting your sources from? 'Cause, you know, you got our perspective here. So it'd be great to hear and listen what you guys have to say, or even engage, or even call. But this is definitely going to be like a multi-part thing. But this is like part one, and this is our generation and what we have to say about the impact and the authenticity of Chamorro dance. Do you guys have anything else to say, though?
I'm going to quote Fuuna real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Let me say it.
you know what I'm going to say?
I don't know what you're going to say.
There's actually something else that Fuuna tweeted that stuck with me as well.
Okay, go
and
ahead.
It's we're not cultural practitioners.
Oh.
We are just a Chamoru boy and a Chamoru girl who dance.
In a Chamorro world.
In a Chamoru world, who dance. You know, and you know, I mean,
Yeah, we don't practice our culture.
yeah,
we just live it.
Yeah, we don't practice. We just live it.
But if you guys ever, for those of you listening, like, please give us your perspective and give us, you know, or even reach out to us and how you guys can contribute. Yeah, because we definitely want to know what you guys have to say. And this concludes our Fanachu podcast.
Adios.
Adios.
Adios.